oh wow, my love for fiddle music can actually be another degree. So I spent 5 years on my PhD where I decided to research the Irish music, specifically Irish fiddle music on Prince Edward Island, recording and interviewing fiddlers and doing lots of comparisons between the music that's played in PEI and its roots in Ireland and Scotland.
Hi everyone, this is Lulu, founder of Kaylee.io. Today we're doing a Q&A with fiddle teacher Kate Bevan-Baker. Kate is an award-winning performer and teacher in Canada. Thanks for joining us, Kate.
Thanks so much for having me.
Kate, I actually would like to ask you to also introduce yourself in French.
Sure. Je m'appelle Kate, je joue du violon trad et j'enseigne les styles celtiques et québécois.
I think I understood most of that.
Great.
Do you speak French because you grew up on the east coast of Canada?
I do not. I did not speak French before I moved to Montreal, and it's only been about the last 5 years that I've put serious effort into becoming bilingual since the pandemic.
That's actually quite impressive that you're able to do that. So what was it like then growing up on the east coast of Canada?
There was a lot of folk trad music in our household. So ever since I was 2, I knew I wanted to play fiddle. There was so much live music in the home, and my parents took us out to see live music and dances on a very regular basis. My father's from Scotland, so we would go there every summer or two to see cousins, aunts and uncles, and 2 of my aunts are professional violinists and fiddlers. So I knew, watching them play, I said, I want to fiddle. And when I was 4, my parents got me my first violin.
When you were 4, wow, were you about the same size as the fiddle, or did you have a baby size for the fiddle?
I had a super tiny one that my son started on as well when he was 4.
Where in Scotland was that?
Up in the Highlands. Most of my family is near Inverness on the Black Isle. And I do have some family in Edinburgh and Glasgow as well.
It's beautiful there. I had gone for a bike tour in Scotland a number of years ago and biked through there. So it's a beautiful country and also beautiful music as well. So you had done your PhD in Irish music studies, right? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. I was born in Newfoundland where there was a lot of Irish immigration. So my Newfoundland side, my mom's side of the family, has Irish roots, and I was curious about that when I started learning more fiddle repertoire. I grew up playing classical and fiddle styles at the same time in parallel lives, which I'm very grateful for, that I can switch back and forth. But my interest in Irish styles and comparing it to the Scottish styles that I had heard growing up really came to the forefront after I finished my master's, which was in classical violin, and I discovered there was a program at Concordia University. They have a department of Irish studies. And when I was like, oh wow, my love for fiddle music can actually be another degree, an academic degree, I'll do that. So I spent 5 years on my PhD where I decided to research the Irish music, specifically Irish fiddle music on Prince Edward Island, where my family now lives. And I went back and forth from Montreal to PEI doing my field work, recording and interviewing fiddlers, listening to archival recordings of fiddlers who are no longer alive, and doing lots of comparisons between the music that's played in PEI and its roots in Ireland and Scotland.
Oh, that sounds like a really deep dive. Do you feel like that's brought you more insight, in your own playing, having listened to so many different versions of the same tune being played?
It definitely has. I've spent, I don't even want to say how many hours transcribing and slowing down recordings and listening to little bits over and over again so I can really understand what notes are they playing, what bowing is that person doing, because I am very interested in those little nuances and the details. So it definitely has affected my playing, and when I'm learning a new tune, I don't just click the first recording or the PDF of sheet music I find online. I do a deep dive in everything.
So how'd you go from, playing just classical music, because I imagine that's what you started off studying. How did you go from that to being so interested in Irish music that you decided to get a PhD in it? What was your first foray into Irish music?
It was when I did my undergrad in Newfoundland in St. John's at Memorial University that I joined my first folk band called the Dardanelles, and they're still active today. That was my first deep dive into learning and performing Irish tunes on a professional level. And it was really at the same time that I was pursuing my undergrad in classical violin. And I'm very glad I didn't have to choose between the two styles because they are different. But the culture in Newfoundland, there is a huge Irish presence and a love for folk music. So I was encouraged and I felt comfortable learning and performing Irish fiddle tunes in conjunction with my classical studies.
So it seems like because you were doing them in parallel, you didn't have to transition from one to the other. Because I was going to ask if you found it challenging when you had to switch from playing classical style to Irish music.
I don't find it challenging because I've been doing it since the beginning. My classical lessons started at age 4, but every summer when we would go to Scotland, I would learn fiddle tunes by ear from my aunts, and I would receive cassette tapes as Christmas gifts and birthday gifts of them playing fiddle tunes and compositions for me to learn by ear on my side of the Atlantic. So I was always switching back and forth, and I grew up going to fiddle camps in the summer. So it was classical during the year, fiddle in the summer, and then when I was at university age, I really did both at the same time, and I still do all kinds of styles of music in my freelance life.
I think you also play other styles, right? You do Celtic music, you do classical, but I read that you also do jazz music as well.
I've done some jazz. I was a jazz singer for a few years. I followed that path for a little while and recorded a CD where I sang all jazz standards. I don't really do that anymore. It was a phase, but I do love jazz music. Also contemporary, more indie folk. I've played in some rock bands and experimental classical music as well.
That's interesting. Do you find that having been exposed to so many different genres means that you can bring some of those elements into each genre to create something new potentially?
Yes, and I love starting a new project or being hired for a specific one-off recording or a short project that might not go long term, where all the musicians involved come from different musical backgrounds and we are encouraged to suggest ideas or interpretations for all the different repertoire in the program or for the recording. And I find it's been very handy and positive when I suggest, oh, here's a technique from my fiddle playing that might work here, or I can sight read really well. Or if you want me to improvise over this, just give me the chord chart. And the skills I've learned in different styles of music have definitely played a positive role in different projects I've been involved with lately.
That's so wonderful. It's like globalization, of each traditional music and to give them new life. You mentioned that in college you played in your first band. How many bands have you been part of now through your performing career?
Too many to count. I would say right now I've got 4 active Celtic groups. Some of the members are in more than one. Like I have 2 people who come from we play in a few different groups together. Also, geography separates me from other bandmates, so we play together less frequently. But I would say I've got 4 or 5 projects on the go right now. And I'm always game to do something new.
Right. So with all these different styles, do you think it's possible to play the same tune in a number of different styles and show us how they're different from each other?
Sure, I would love to. Hearing tunes played in different styles, the same tune played in a different style, a lot of people might not notice at first listen, especially if you're not a trained musician or listen to trad music regularly. But by going to jam sessions or sessions, I've heard and encountered a lot of instances where I think they're playing this tune, but it sounds so different. I'm not sure. I'm not going to join in because I'm not 100% sure, or I don't know their version here in this geographical part of the world. I'm going to sit it out. But there are other tunes where the versions are similar enough that someone from one country could play their version at a different country's jam session and fit in, even if not all the notes or embellishments are the same. So the tune that I'd like to play for you to demonstrate these differences in regional styles is Miss McLeod's Reel, or Mrs. McLeod's Reel, which is originally a Scottish tune. It's hundreds of years old and it has many different names. I believe online there were over 30, close to 40 different titles for this reel. So that just shows you how far geographically this tune has reached. There are titles in different languages. It's been published in many different tune collections from different regions of the world. A lot of people or cultures accept this tune into their repertoire, and maybe they're not aware that it's originally a Scottish tune. But when I came to Montreal 15 years ago, it was the first time I had heard the tune played in another key, and they reversed the A and the B sections from what I had grown up learning, and it blew my mind. I was like, how can this tune be so different and sound amazing? So I'll play you how they play it in Scotland and Cape Breton, where I grew up learning when I learned the tune. In Scottish fiddling, a lot of the ornamentation is done with the bow. Some people describe it as heavier sounding or lots more accents with the bow. So maybe that'll come across in my version of Miss McLeod's. And this is played in A major. And here goes.
How would you describe what the Irish version is like?
The Irish version is more smooth with the bow, and the ornaments mostly come from the left hand. So I'm changing notes in the melody instead of embellishing the melody with extra notes in the bow. And most Irish versions I've heard, instead of playing Miss McLeod's in A, they shift it down a tone into G major, and they reverse the A and the B part. Here's how most Irish fiddlers play Miss McLeod's.
About the Quebec version?
Yes, the most distinctive feature about Québécois fiddling and trad music here in the province of Quebec is the potorhythmie, or the foot percussion, where many players will tap their feet at the same time as they play, so it adds this extra percussive element. I'm not an expert, but I can do it. So I'm going to show you, I'll tap my feet and play the tune as they do here in Quebec at the jam sessions I've attended, and this is the way I've picked it up here. And it's more similar to the Irish version than the Scottish, which makes sense because there was more Irish immigration here than Scottish. Yeah, it's like separating your left and your right brain. But it gets easy.
You must be very good at multitasking.
I multitask a lot, yes.
That was wonderful, Kate. Um, I also read on your bio that your music has been played or featured in video games and movies. Can you tell us a little bit about those projects you were involved in?
Sure. That's also since I moved to Montreal. I've been exposed to so many cool opportunities and diverse musical experiences since I moved here. And Ubisoft, which produces video games, they're one of the few video game companies that still hires live musicians for their video games. And they've done a bunch of games that feature sea shanties or more traditional folk repertoire. And I was asked to sing some background pirate vocals on some games and play tunes as well, which was really fun. And I believe it's not the same company, but so those are the Assassin's Creed video games that my music, singing, and violin can be heard on, as well as the Far Cry games. I haven't played or seen what any of these games look like. I imagine some of them are violent and not something I would be into, but when I tell my students at university that I've played on these Assassin's Creed games, they're like, "Whoa, that's so cool!" But I can't.
And so, when you say that you sing, the sea shanties pretending to be pirate, were you pretending to be a female pirate?
Some of the games I'm allowed to sound like a female. There are some recent games where the crew of the ships is multinational from different countries and speaking different languages and of different male and female. So I've had to learn sea shanties in Swahili and other languages that I definitely do not speak and just sing the crew responses. So that's also been a learning experience. But other games where traditionally sailors were only men and it was considered taboo to have a female on board, I either had to sing in the same register as the men, which I have a low voice, it's easy for me to do, I fit right in, or I didn't get to sing on all of the shanties.
Do you remember what the sea shanty in Swahili sounded like?
Oh, I can. It was a few years ago, but you can find it if you look for the Busking Barnacles is what they called us, our group name.
Well, that was really fun conversation, Kate. Thanks so much for taking the time to joining me today and demonstrating, all these different tunes and different styles. That was really cool. So thanks again.
It was a pleasure. Thanks again for having me. It was great to meet you virtually.
And for the audience, if you liked this conversation, remember to subscribe and like this video. Thank you. Actually, do you know, can you play it in classical style, just straight up? Is that possible?
Sure. If I was a classical player and was given the sheet music for this,
Yeah.
it would lose the swing and the danceability. There would probably be vibrato and no trad ornaments. It would probably sound like this. It feels so ridiculous to do that.